Hey guys, how you doing? It's Robby Mueller here. I'm going to show you today how to dodge and burn the non-destructive way in Photoshop. Non-destructive meaning I'm not going to be messing with the pixels. Using the dodge and burn tool is actually going to be a destructive way of dodging and burning, and that's a negative thing because an image is made up of pixels. So if you are messing with those in a way that can, alter them or whatever, it's not really good. So what Photoshop does when it dodges and burns, it actually kind of manipulates each pixel as you're dodging and burning it. The way I'm going to show you is actually a curves layer that you use a mask. So we'll get into that, but before we do that, we're going to quickly fix up this image just really quickly here in a raw. As you see, her face is a little dark for my liking, so I'm going to boost this up exposure here, maybe to like, we'll go 0.20, 0.2, whatever. Contrast a little bit. I mean, I like a little bit of contrast going on there. In Adobe Camera Raw, P for preview. That's the key command. So that's nice to know. One thing. This obviously most photographers do shoot in RAW, but Adobe Camera Raw is definitely a reason to shoot in Camera Raw. You have this raw image or DNG that I have it converted to, that you can use these settings and then go back and change them anytime you want. So it's there's so many benefits to doing that. So I don't see much I'm going to do in RAW here. I really don't want to mess with anything right now. This is just going to be a simple video, dodging and burning and some face correction. So I'm just going to open up this image in Photoshop. My computer, I just got a 5D Mark II finally, so my computer is really hating on me because the file sizes are a lot bigger than the Canon 5D Classic. So first thing I'm going to start off with here, even though we could have done this in RAW if we wanted to, is take this out. That fence, kind of annoying, so just there we go. I'm going to make a background copy. Another way of making a background copy is Command and J. So we got that. I'm going to make this, this is the first thing that we're going to do is actually sharpen this layer. So, unsharp mask is a popular way. I'm going to do smart sharpen. It's one of the many ways I've learned to do this over the courses I've taken and also the tutorials I've watched. These settings are play with kind of settings. If you find something you like, then go with it. I would suggest going into the advanced and messing with things and see what you like. I have my settings already set up or whatever, so I'm just going to go ahead. So smart sharpen is a good way to go. It always ends up being good. So here's the sharpen layer. Barely visible, but it's enough to notice. So I'm going to name this layer sharpen, and then I'm going to duplicate that again. So here we are. We're going to go down to the adjustments, go to curves, and so this is going to be our dodging. So we're going to go to the middle of the curves and pull it up a little bit. Pull it up until you see a nice, just picture how you would want to see your whites. It's not going to be this bright, obviously, because you'll see in a second. So what I'm going to do is make a black mask over that, so I can paint this in white, and that way whatever I paint in white is going to show through. So I'm going to press B for brush. It's set to black right now, so I'm going to press X, which will reverse those. Now I'm on white, and my opacity is at 100. I like to go, I start at about 20%, so if you press number 2, that brings the opacity down to 20%. So I'm going to start off with her eyes. As many of you, well, another important thing is the hardness. Right now the hardness is at 99%. I'm going to bring that down to 0%. The hardness affects how, how hard the brush is. If you have 100% hardness on your brush, the lines will show up and it's an ugly brush. It's the only way you can really understand is by trying it. So here we are in the eyes. I'm at 20% opacity. I'm gonna brighten up the eyes a little bit, just like that. as you can see, that already made a huge deal. Huge difference, sorry. I'm gonna go into some areas. I'm just gonna light up what I think needs to be lit, like, you know, just bring out the highlights a little bit. And it's the whole point of this is really to, if you have some exposure problems, to fix those. But you know, a big thing is just kind of adding a contrast in the face and making a more interesting, you know, contrast between the darks and the lights. And you know, you'll really see at the end of this how much her face pops. So in the hair, it's a little touchy sometimes, especially when you're using strobes. So I'm gonna dodge it, but I'm gonna bring it down to 10% opacity. So I press 1 to bring my brush opacity down to 1. So you can see exactly where I'm painting the lighter parts of this image. Go in and if we really wanted to, we'd do her clothes. She doesn't have that much difference in her clothing at all. There's no real details in them in terms of shadows and highlights, so I'm just gonna not mess with that right now for the sake of the video and keeping it somewhat short. So I'm gonna name that to Dodge, just so we remember later on, so we don't get them too confused. And now I'm going to go back to the adjustments layer here, and I'm going to go to curves again, bring it down this time. I'm going to make that mask, press B for brush again, and now switch back to 20% opacity and come in and start to color in the darks. Let's see. So since the side of her face is, you know, you can see the shadows right there, but there's a pretty big contrast if you were to do a pretty intense burn over here. So what I'm going to do is drop it down to 10% again and, you know, make this a little bit more subtle. You don't want to make it too obvious. It starts to get really cheesy and obvious, if that's the point. I don't know why I did the bridge of her nose here, so I'm going to press X to go back to black, and I'm going to paint this back out. There, now it's a little bit more subtle. I'm gonna go in, get the darks in your eyes here. And black. Need to be on white. There we go. So as you see already, you know, it's really bringing in some details in her face, especially in the eye area, the sides of her face. And then we're going to go into her hairs. It's not really that important in this image just because the darks are already dark enough, and you know, I don't want to mess with the highlights. So there's that. I'm going to go back down to this one. We're going to name this one Face. Name that one Face. Oops, held down spacebar. I didn't know that I wasn't still editing the text in that. Okay, so we're in the face, and what we're going to do is we're going to go over to this, and we're going to click on the healing brush tool. This one, well, actually we'll go with the patch tool first. I like to do the patch tool to find bigger blemishes or whatever it is. So I'm going to start off just by getting the bigger blemishes, and what I'm doing is I'm just circling around them and moving it over. So this tool, you just grab, or you make a circle around whatever, grab onto the middle of it, and then pull it over. The closer you pull it over, the more realistic it's going to look. So if you pull something from a dark area to a light area, it's going to look a little fake. Try not to find repetitive things like I just did. So if you see two things that look similar next to each other, don't pull it onto it, because then it's going to look like it did already. But yeah, just try and keep it as natural looking as you can. So there's that. It's a really great tool. Not a lot of people use that for what I just use it for, but I mean, you know, that's the cool thing about Photoshop is everybody finds their own thing and just goes with it. So whatever you prefer is the best way. So I'm gonna go back to the healing brush tool and I'm gonna heal some things out. If you're on a Mac, you press Option and you click on a source and you pull from it, like I just did there, and it's gonna blend. Photoshop is really smart, so it blends. Looks really great. A lot of people will do this. They'll pull from down here and kind of lighten up the under eye. It makes them look like they don't have as many, or that they don't have dark circles anymore. You know, it's a really good way to do that. Alright, so let's see how that looks. So you can see Leah has good skin anyways, so it's really not that big of a deal, but you know, you can see the blemishes and the discoloration kind of disappearing. Ooh. My computer just had a heart attack. Sorry about that. So I'm just running through this really quickly. I don't want to make a extremely long video, even though it's already been 10 plus minutes, which I apologize for. So if you're actually watching this whole thing, I'm sorry if it's slow moving. I don't make these very often at all, if I do. So that's that. We're gonna go make another face layer. Oops, I did not mean to delete that. Make a face layer number 2. And this one's going to be a smoothing layer, so we'll just smooth. Simple as that. Okay, so with this one, you're going to go to blending mode and then overlay. Press Command I, which is going to inverse the layer. You can go to Filter, Other, I pass. 10% is a great number. Keep it at 10%. Blur, Gaussian blur, and since this is inverse, the higher the number, the less effective it is. The lower the number, the more effective it is. So we're going to go with 3. That's always a good number for this. And then we're going to make a mask over that. Do Option click on the mask to make it black. So B for brush. And we're going to come in, paint with 100% opacity. The reason we're going to do that is because the opacity doesn't really matter right here, because what we're going to probably end up doing is changing the opacity in the actual layer itself. So with this, I'm going to start coloring in, well, not coloring in, but painting over her whole face. And this really smooths out everything. Looks really good once you're done with it. It's really effective and almost overdone at this point. So that's why it's really important to find a realistic opacity. And we'll worry about that after I'm done painting her in really quick here. If you option click on the mask, it's going to show where you painted in and show you kind of where you maybe need to work on. So you can see right here her lips, her nose. We can go in on her nose a little bit here. One thing you don't want to do is where, you know, details cross over from here to her face. You don't want to draw a line, kind of blurs it out and makes it look a little unnatural. You want that detail in her nose still and everything, so try not to cross any lines. Need some help under her eyes. Whatever, for the sake of the video, we'll just stop there, just so you can get an understanding of what I'm doing. And for an image like this, I'm not going to mess with it right now, but it's very important to also do this over her whole skin, because it keeps like a fluid look throughout her skin. If you have a really smooth face and then you can see a lot of definition going on her rest of her skin, it kind of looks really unnatural. So any image you want to try this on, if you have a lot of skin, I would definitely suggest doing it over the whole skin. So, you know, this looks great, but, you know, it looks really fake. So that's the downside. A lot of people don't realize what looks fake and what looks real. So what I'm going to do is actually bring the opacity of this layer down, and from there I'll decide what looks fake and what's real. So you can see, here's with it on, here's with it off. Leah has great skin, like I said, but this isn't that important. So, I mean, keeping it at a pretty low number, 70%, I think is great. It blends it in, makes it look really natural, and she looks great. So that's that. We can see what we did from the beginning to now. From farther away, I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So before and after, before, after. It's a pretty big difference. Even in an image where a person looks great, you know, you can really take it over the top. One other thing I would probably do with this image is maybe color balance a little bit. Maybe, as pointed out by my friend Brad Heaton, he said this is pretty distracting. You know, dodge that out, or burn that out rather. So, you know, with this one, go back into the brush, burn this out a little bit. Not a huge difference, but if you're messing with it and you're doing it the right way, unlike I just did, it'll really make a big difference. So, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me. I'd be more than willing to help. And I'd love to hear what you guys would like to know, what you would like to learn. I have quite a few random things that I know that I just kind of work on by myself all the time, just because I really enjoy sitting in Photoshop for hours on end. So let me know, and I'd love to help you guys out. Cool.